Call to order the Sunnyvale 4B Economic Development Board meeting of Tuesday, January 11th, 2022 to order at 5:33 p.m. All members present except member Chase. Member LaShawn is online, but on his way in, stuck in traffic. 4B board invites citizens to address the board on any matter except items on the agenda and public hearings that are included in the agenda. Comments related to the items on the agenda and public hearings will be heard when the specific item/hearing starts. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise required by law. To address the board, please. The board is not permitted to take action or discuss any item not listed on the agenda. The board may choose to place those items on future agenda items. Anybody like to make public comment? No one in the room, no one online, so we'll move on. So discuss, consider a presentation from Salser Group regarding their upcoming projects. So they were going to try to send somebody, but to expedite, I will review what their current status is. Okay, so the restaurant received their health inspection and was approved last week. They have a couple of items and are moving along, so hopefully that'll be open in the very near future. Yep, correct, for Settler's Table. The demo of the golf course should start later this month. And site work for the athletic club in late April. So that's moving along pretty quick over on Beltline. Town Center Village is in design with geotech and surveys underway. Across the street, should break ground on the wedding venue this summer. Those are the major updates from them. We're hoping they could come give a little more detail, but next item, discuss and consider park concept plans for Jobson, Barnes Bridge, Samuell Farm North, and New Hope Parks. Presentation by MHS Planning and Design.
There we go. Is that better? All right. So now that we're back up and running, like I mentioned, I'm gonna kind of run through real briefly kind of where we've been, and then we'll spend some time on the site plan specific, so we can take a look at kind of what we've done in the process of how we got there. the other direction. All right, there's our title slide. All right, we can go to the next, please. So for today, we're going to run over just real briefly the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Master Plan that Council adopted just a few months back. We'll look at the overall map, which is the area of focus that we've been tasked to look at. We'll briefly discuss the public input, and then we'll kind of dive into the park designs and touch back on what we intended to do with these parks based on the master plan information, our initial concept plans, and then those final concept plans will be in the future and some 3D renderings based on the public input. And then again, of course, next steps. So just to recap, we developed the 2021 through 2031 Parks Master Plan. Again, I believe it was late in 2021. And through that process, we came up with town priorities. And so that list is the kind of the ranking priorities that we were driving or steering the plan with. That was based on all the community input. So again, this is just an overall town map of the 4 projects that we've been tasked to look at conceptually. You can see Jobson Park, Samuell Farm North Park, Samuell New Hope Park, and Barnes. Again, public input, we met 2 days in October, and we had 2 2-hour sessions that were open to the public. We had provided 2 different concept plans for each park. So we came with 8 different drawings, posted them with design boards, and I'll show you those in a moment that we ran through to receive public comment. So we'll start with Jobson. On the, I guess, the left hand of your screen, those are the improved Jobson Park this is direct from the master plan. Those are the needs that were derived. So you can see, you can read through some of those. It's repave and expand some of the park. It's mostly just enhancing that park as it is town owned and it is developed at this point, or partially developed. And below that in the second box is actually from the implementation schedule. That is taking the recommendations and the needs and coming up with a list of items that we wanted to incorporate as we looked at the design. On the right side of your screen are the 2 different concept plans we came up with for discussion at the public input, along with some design concept ideas of different styles and design development type ideas to get people's kind of imagination starting to run. So this is based on all the comment. This is the concept plan we've come up with. Again, it's conceptual at this point. We wanted to bring it to you to get feedback before we go any further in the process to make sure you're on board. As you can see, we've added 2 additional ball fields. Based on all the comment we received, they will be unlighted ball fields and just recreational play. There's existing parking, of course, out there. We've added additional parking. We've almost mirrored that existing parking over. There was a lot of discussion on where that additional parking should go, whether it be on Tavener Road or Jobson. And I think we've all settled based on a lot of the public comment to just increase parking on Jobson Road there. Yeah, we can. So that was those. And then this is a initial conceptual rendering we have. Again, that's from the existing parking lot looking over the park. You have your existing ball field on the right, and then your 2 new fields there kind of up the top left, along with restroom, concession, and playground.
There won't be a specific age group assigned to any field. We'll go as large as we can go, up to 300 feet on the outfield distance. That way we can play every age up to 14 years old. And we could use the high school if we ever had a league that needed a 60-90 field. Correct, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, if you look at the second parking lot, the middle field, we pulled back towards the parking lot, so the distance wouldn't be as far to walk. And then the trail that you see that runs in front of the concession stand between the backstop and the playground will go over the top of the parking lot, so it'll meet the parking lot right there, so it'll be easy access.
On that note, Burton, could you go back 1 slide, please? if you look at that existing parking lot, you can see the trail runs all the way down to the proposed parking lot and then continues down and ties into, I believe there's an existing trail in the neighborhood that will link into. So we also looked at Samuell Farm North. Again, this is the same. We have the two preliminary concepts on your right. We've looked at it. Originally, when we were developing the master plan, we had considered a multi-sport, multi-use sports complex. Again, I think that's shifted based on some other things that are happening in the town. So we do not have that included, and we've stayed more, even on both of our concept renderings, kind of more passive recreation. We've had disc golf, skate parks, constructive playground, and then we've moved into our implementation, which is, again, we decided to remove the sports complex, but we've got playground, multipurpose trails, skate park, natural open spaces, and site amenities. You can see our estimated budget there is the 2.5 to 3.5 million. So based on that, we've taken our two different options and based on discussion, come up with this third conceptual plan. As you can see, we've got trails that meander throughout the whole project. We've got a cricket soccer multi-use field. We've got a large area that's relatively flat as is and treeless. So we thought that'd be a good use of that space. We're considering the idea of an archery range in this area. We have picnic pods, pavilion, playground, open lawn area. Again, we have an existing pond on site that we would like to enhance if we can get in there and do some enhancements on it without being too environmentally impactful. Ninja courses, which are very popular these days, fitness type playgrounds. We have food truck parking, additional parking, and again, a lot of the existing amenities that are on site. We have nature trails, 1.5 mile loop there, and we have included the skate park at this site. The main active hub is kind of, if you look at the northwest corner, it's the top left. You see 10, 9, 8, 15, and 10. That's kind of your most active area with playground, food trucks, pavilion, kind of a gathering spot there. Yeah, I think that's up for discussion. Currently, it's left natural in its native state, but I think, we're taking any comment. We'd like to address any comments tonight. I believe, if we can go in and clear out some underbrush, it really makes the place feel safer and look more aesthetically pleasing. But there is an advantage to keeping things just natural and native as they are. Okay. Yeah, definitely. And we definitely, as we have our trail corridor that meanders through the woods, we definitely clear. The trail itself is probably going to be about 8 feet wide, and we would clear 20 feet. So you'd have mowing strip edges along your path to keep it a little more maintained. Yeah. But we can definitely do that. You can't access it. Yeah, definitely. We can create little kind of nodes is what we would call them. And we could even have areas that come off the trail that bring you to those spaces if that's something you're interested in. I think we have 80 spots. I believe that's probably good for what we have there at the moment, unless of course there is, if something is happening with the sports related area, there may need to be additional parking. Typically what we would do at a park like this is not pave a whole lot of parking because it won't be used all the time, but we would develop a space that is meant for overflow parking, and we could enhance the soils and things like that to make sure cars can park on the grass. Really? Okay. the Monarchs.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah, so what I was saying is, Tina, is that the number one, the cricket multi-use field, depending on what's going on in the other parts, I would like to consider not having that and just leaving that open space. I feel like every time we have an open space, we try to put a ball field there, so it'd be nice to have two areas that are just open.
For the nodes that you mentioned, any consideration for an area for campfires? I guess you'd have to clear enough, foliage to make that possible, but that's something that'd be possible. I think a lot of the kids in the schools.
From a design standpoint, that's feasible. I don't know about any ordinances or things like that of having open fires, or there may be some limitations on that, but that would be ultimately probably a council decision.
In Texas, there's several no burn seasons, burn ban seasons, where we would have to shut that completely down like we do our barbecue grills right now. Like with just even in temperatures like this, with the wind that we had, we would have to go to a burn ban if we had any kind of space for a planned open fire like that. So it would be awesome to have, but it would barely get used simply because of that.
Also, any consideration for a beginner to novice mountain bike trail throughout the woods? So it'd still be open wooded area, untouched, but you could get some utility out of it.
Definitely. We do actually, when we get to New Hope, we'll address a lot of the questions that you all have had so far in comments. So actually, Burton, if you don't mind going to the next slide, please. So this is a conceptual rendering here. You can see this is kind of on the, I guess it's on the north side looking south towards 80 would be far in the background. You can see the pavilion and playground. You see the parking lot, and back in the top right-hand corner, you can see the fitness ninja course. And I believe there's another rendering on this one as well. That's pretty parking heavy. So this is from, I'm sorry, I had my angles backwards. This is from the north looking south. You can see the ninja course there with the proposed parking lot, playground pavilion in the background with the trails meandering through the woods. And way back in the back, there's a cricket field. You can barely see it back there. So we looked at Samuell New Hope as well. We've actually, when we were looking at this is a more heavily wooded site. So we decided to keep this even more passive and natural than the previous park we looked at. Again, in the master plan, we looked at multi-purpose trails, mountain bike, BMX trails, the dog park, the butterfly garden, the native plantings, an outdoor education facility for different schools or different groups to participate in. Again, looking at the second square at the bottom, these are the items we wanted to actually implement into that. We have the trails, signage, pavilions, the bike trails, the dog park, natural open spaces, butterfly garden, and different site amenities throughout the area. So again, heavily wooded. So what we've done is we've kept most of the development towards I guess on this one would be the north side. It's rotated. It'll be on the north side. One of the reasons for that is, one, we looked at the topography, and this is kind of the best areas to build things on this site, as well as the further we got down, I guess south, which would be to your right, the more expensive it would be because we'd have to build all the infrastructure to get there. So we wanted to keep as much as we could kind of tucked up towards Town East Boulevard, within reason, so that the cost of the road and parking, all those things weren't as substantial. So you can see here we've added parking. We've got the dog park, the dog washing station, outdoor classroom education area is kind of an outdoor amphitheater that we had planned for. Mountain bike trails. We have a phase 1 trail and a phase 2 trail. That again is because there's a lot of area out there and trying to kind of minimize impact day one. And then again, we've also labeled that there's an electrical easement running through that property. I thought it was electrical, but if you know, it might be electrical gas. we'll verify it. So, and we can, with natural gas, we can go over it without permanent structures. So a trail or anything like that is easy. If they ever need to get to it, they tear it up and they won't pay to repair it. So it'll be on the town or the owner at that point.
This area has more hardwoods, and I guess this is where I was thinking more in the lines of having those,
Lift the canopies.
which like where the mountain bike trail is, you would have to do that a little bit anyway. So.
Correct.
Just a comment in the southeast corner, I guess it'd be, there's an existing trail that skirts this that we should try to tie into.
Correct. We will tie into that because it ties into that neighborhood,
Yes.
just on the, like I said, on the east side. Correct. And I believe there's another one up, almost right in the center on the top, which would be the east side again. We've tied into that. There's an alleyway or something, I believe, back behind those homes. Oh, was it right there? I thought it was off that.
Does Derek's development have a trail system that runs parallel to town east? Or sidewalk?
It'll have a sidewalk that runs along counties.
We should tie into that as well. That would give you a lot more area to ingress and egress.
And we've talked about that with him about, is there the possibility of as they finalize their plans and we finalize our plans, is there some interconnectivity that we could do there?
So this is one of the renderings of the dog park. So this is again standing in the dog park, looking across the trail into where the pavilion area is, kind of in that opening that opens up into that meadow. Just some ideas for what that could be with the dog wash stations and some different play elements.
Did you just say there's walking trails back there as well, or just the mountain bike trail? Would you walk on that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. 7 and 8 are both multi-use.
Oh, okay.
6 will be designated as a mountain bike trail. There's a lot of people that would walk on it, and there's a lot of shared use that comes with those.
Yeah, but I don't know. I was just in my head, I was reading it wrong. So sorry about that.
Again, this is a view of the parking lot looking back. The mountain bike trails are actually in the background there. You can see where they kind of begin in the wooded areas.
It showed more of an aerial view. Yeah. What's the church going to do with the very end of their property back there that butts up to this? And then the next one over. It's too far back for retail, really.
I agree, it's too far back for retail, but I haven't heard of any plans to do anything.
Well, this is way down the road, but we might consider working with them and the other property owners back there that abut these park systems. If it's not used property, if we could work into some kind of a deal where we can, make use of that property. Since we're already in a park situation as it is, just food for thought down the road.
Yeah, I think on that note, I think when you get to the engineering side of things on these, yeah, there'll be a lot of communication with your neighbors and throughout that process. And then Barnes Bridge. This one, there was a lot of different ideas and concepts. I think in the public meetings, there's a lot of excitement about this project. It is located along the lake. And again, there's a lot of beach type themed amenities out here. This is what we heard all through public comment and at the meeting in October. But again, construct sport paddle launch, a boat ramp, fishing piers, boardwalks, playground, install site amenities, amphitheaters. Again, so at that bottom box here, you can see the budget is about 3 to 4 million. And the areas to focus on were walking trails, the boat ramp, fishing piers and boardwalks, paddle launches, volleyball, picnic areas, the amphitheater, playground, and your different site amenities. So again, on the right, we showed 2 different concepts of what it could look like and some different examples of what could be out there. And based on that, we've come up with this design. There was a lot of discussion about accessing the lake via boat. So we increased the amount of parking because that was a hot item discussed, and kind of minimized the beach area. But we have kayak launch, picnic pods, fishing piers, amphitheaters, and boardwalks. It's not a real large space, but I think we've fit everything in there pretty nicely for recreational purposes. One of the biggest concerns we heard about this specific park was the traffic going one way in and having to come back out. That's a pretty standard concern that a lot of individuals have when you talk about new park developments. But again, we've got plenty of parking at this. We think it would be highly used, especially with it being on the water. And you could, again, number 4 there is an amphitheater or pavilion. You could have concerts on the lake. And again, day use type areas.
So question for you in terms of your experience with funding on these. So I know Texas Parks and Wildlife has quite a bit of funding for gaining boat access. But in recent years, the west side of Lake Ray Hubbard has been cut off from public boat access. And so most of the free is on the east side. And right around here, you got to pay to gain access. So I guess my question is, from a municipality standpoint, which way is it best to go? You know, keep it free or man it and charge a fee and make money off of it? And well, if you do other things out there, you know, when I say make money off of it, try to recoup some of your costs.
If Texas Parks and Wildlife funds projects, they don't typically allow user fees.
Okay.
Because it's state funded dollars. And so they say, well, these are tax dollars purposes. So you don't need to be making money off the investments they provide. Is typically their standpoint on most projects. So that answers that. But in terms of usage, I think it could work either way. You could go user fee. You could, some communities have boat ramps that they do monthly memberships or yearly annual memberships for access. That's really up to the town and y'all's decision on how that works. But I will say most of the time municipalities, for the cost of what you'd make,
Not worth it.
yeah, trying to run that, and you have to have someone manning it and keeping up with all the paperwork, that they would just open it and kind of a quality of life aspect of just offering it to the community.
Correct. It's currently closed.
Correct.
And there was not boat access. Well, I guess if you really wanted to rough it, you could, but there's not a boat ramp there at present. It was just grassy area and people went out and hung out. Right. There was people living out there full time. And so through the request of the sheriff's department and town council and everything, when the town took over control of the property from the city of Dallas, made the decision to close it down and hoped that if we did that for a period of years, the people that were hanging out there would slowly go away. And I believe that's happened, and then gave us time to figure out what to do with it and reach this phase and then move forward with making something positive for the community to use it for. And we'll go look at it when we do our tour, but that's another topic.
Yeah, right now it is just a big open lawn.
Right.
And there is
Just under 4 acres.
correct.
Right. Now, unless you, kind of to your point, unless we bought more land, kind of limited on what you can do there, but it's pretty, you know, when you go out there. And then the power plant was happy as well when we closed it down, because people were, when the lake drops, there's a little island that shows up and people were swimming across some of their water inlets to go to the island.
Remind me, do the city of Dallas owns the land and we manage it?
What is 7? Sand volleyball. Okay.
Yes.
What was the thought process on 12, the wildflower area?
I think that was something we heard throughout a lot of the public input, was that people wanted to see kind of enhanced landscape type areas. So I think we have an opportunity. It's pretty simple and inexpensive, and they bloom once a year because you throw them out, throw out some seeds. That was the reason for that.
Makes a lot of sense. I agree with the wildfire area, but that real estate, this waterfront property, maybe may not be the best idea. Maybe more emphasis on sand and beach view.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good point, because even the lawn area itself could be.
There's so many.
I mean, it goes back to the pros and cons, you know, the sand volleyball. Going to be a lot of maintenance, you know, so it depends on, versus like if you go to the Arboretum where it's grass,
Mhm.
pretty easy to mow the grass and then people get out there and do whatever they want. But yeah, there'll be a lot of discussion when it comes down to actually doing something.
That parking is not going to be enough because there'll be some boards, and if at all you throw a concert in there, think about like so many people.
No matter what, there's gonna be a lot of monkey business at this park. Once it's opened again, because it's always been like that. Just because of where it is.
What would be the capacity of the amphitheater?
It's probably, I don't know that answer off the top of my head, but it's probably not very big. It's probably, 50, 80 people or so. I think you could fit more. The intent would be people could bring lawn chairs and fit, but in terms of actual designated seating, the intent would be to use the existing topography and kind of build in retaining walls. So you'd sit on a retaining wall edge, as opposed to, built out concrete and chairs and things like that.
And then, number 5, the boardwalk. I like the boardwalk idea a lot. The U-shaped portion of it, the boardwalk where it touches other areas. The logic behind that, instead of it being a waterfront boardwalk, what's the logic behind?
That was the way the U shape right now, it kind of creates the beach area. That was the intent of that, is that it kind of selects this beach area to keep it
Defined.
edge. Right.
Just think about the maintenance of a boardwalk. Is there another way to define the beach area?
Certainly.
You cut out a lot of that deck area.
Certainly. Yeah. And that, there's nothing that says that boardwalk has to be wood. That could be a concrete trail. It could be, you could even do just a foot wide concrete edge that just runs around there.
Understood.
But I think you do need to define your area with your sand so that it's not.
That makes sense. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
And the material, I was thinking just wood by default.
Yeah, and that's how we have it. But again, it's up for discussion. We're happy to take any input. Yeah, there is a lot happening at this spot. It could be your prime real estate if it could all get built.
I mean,
We have one that is on the kayak launch paddle sport looking back towards the property. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you can go back one. I don't know if we can zoom in on those. It's one, we minimized, the boat ramp was on the north side or the south side. As you can see, we've expanded the boat ramp parking tremendously. Correct. Number 2. And then a lot of it was just layout. We kind of had the beach in different areas, just kind of had the flow of the property and where people you can kind of direct flow of people based on design. But once essentially the biggest difference is that we expanded the boating access parking and minimized the recreational areas. We kind of just shrunk everything down a little bit to make sure we could keep all the amenities we wanted. But also, again, like you mentioned, there was a lot of conversation about this being one of the only areas for potential boating access in this area of the lake. So that was desired.
So we reached the point of actually doing something out there.
Yeah, it's,
A lot of questions, but I like all the aspects. It's just, like you said, probably more than would work in that small footprint. So you just figure out what your priorities are.
and most likely that a project of this size would be built in phases. Realistically, unless you found a big donor or found a big grant, you'd come in and develop this over a couple of years. So we have next steps. Of course, we have any kind of comments that you all want to address tonight. I know we've addressed some of those. And then based on that, we're going to, I guess we're not taking a vote tonight, but we're going to revise the concept plans and we're going to go ahead and make them digital, assuming that's the next step we want to take. We'll revise and update our 3D renderings, and we're going to have multiple more for each project. Again, as part of our task is to develop cost estimates for these different areas, so we can kind of go into a little more detail of what it's going to cost. And then we'll present this again to this board, and we'll present it to town council, all the final drawings. And then that next step is to look at different funding opportunities. Is that, again, you've been doing the process right. You started with the master plan, and you've gone to the next step and look at conceptual plans. So the next steps are, well, the hardest step is how do you pay for all this? So we'll look at funding opportunities. And then once we kind of narrow those down, you move into engineering design and then into construction of those projects to kind of finish out the whole project. So that is all I have to share tonight, but I'm happy to address any other questions, thoughts, concerns. If you want to look at any of the other projects again, I'm happy to look over them.
Will we be able to get a copy of this to review? It'd be nice to be able to sit down and really look at it. I mean, my overall comment is that it's so much stuff on every plot of land, and I think they could be, just because we are interested in having all of these things doesn't mean that we really need to have 2 splash pads in town. And we could, again, I'm still trying to preserve open space, and so I think there's things we could take out and just leave open, and they'd still be lovely facilities. With some of the amenities added and more open space around them would be nice and less expensive.
Yeah. And on that note, keep in mind, these are complete build out plans. So, they most likely will be built in phases, and they'll, things will be tweaked and modified throughout the process. But they are full build out, 10-year plans.
Yeah.
You chip away as you can, and if you decide not to do it, you don't move forward with it.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, certainly we can provide a copy to you all.
That'd be
I
great.
would say back on the we hope so do a little bit more coordination with the developers that are about to break ground, so we can plan the connecting trails from this location west into the sports facility / restaurant venue, entertainment venue.
Yeah, and we can do that. We can coordinate with them, and if they have any drawings, we can tie into those, or we can draw in lines that are conceptually meant to connect.
Is all this part of 10-year plan? What's the timeline? How is it available to- Our conversations were-
Right.
The master plan was a 10-year
10-year
plan.
plan.
And so, I mean, I think you're right. It comes down to funding. I think
Yeah.
there's, once we get the plans finalized, there's a conversation to be had about what grants are available. A lot of grants want you to have, those lovely shovel-ready projects of, your funding in place, and there's a match. So there may be a conversation about bonds in the future. If you want to go to the voters, it's nice to have plans and pictures to show voters what we're talking about. So this all lays the groundwork for that funding conversation. And then depending on how aggressive we want to be with the funding, that's how aggressive we want to be with the timeline.
To have a 10-year plan and an execution priority. And then you develop the funding plan based on that, right? So there's a lot of work to be done. Right.
And do we run into problems when looking at grants because we don't own the majority of this land? It seems like when we were working on the grant for the butterfly gardens, that was one of the issues that cropped up because we don't technically own. Yeah, like New Hope and Ward and Barnes Bridge,
Yeah.
and we don't technically own any of those.
Yeah, there's the ownership element. There's still the thing that we probably want to figure out how to deal with Dallas with the current language of the lease agreement where they can give us, I forget what it is, 60 days notice and
180.
180.
Yep.
And we have to give them back the property. So obviously we don't want to go and spend, $5 million on some property and then Dallas comes calling wanting it back. But one of the things that Dallas wanted to see for us to have those conversations was, well, what are y'all going to do with it? And so again, this lays that foundation for us to go have those specific conversations with Dallas of, this is what we're wanting to do. This is our plan. This is our timeline. We need you to renegotiate our agreement to where it's a 30-year lease. And if you pull out early, there's a penalty that we get our money back or, something like that. I mean, all those things are up for negotiation, but I do think to protect the town, we need to revisit that language if we're going to spend a bunch of money.
And that was the goal for the 3 that are owned by the city of Dallas or the trust.
And it is possible through Parks and Wildlife, but the grant application would also have to initiate with them since they're the controlling authority. So they would have to, they would have to buy into this concept plan, which, like Charles said, all of those things, if you're talking about potential, you're going to put it out there as a bond. All of those things are going to help get you grant funds if there's public support. So it kind of all works together, or it all doesn't. So,
The flip side of that argument about Dallas, they can't pick it up and take it home. If we put stuff out there, they're not going to come tear it out. It'd be ridiculous. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think on the one hand, I don't like the agreement either, and we definitely need to revisit it. I totally agree. But on the other hand, whatever we do out here, they're going to be glad we did it. And people are going to use it just the same. It's not like they can close it up. So we got to get away from that mindset a little bit.
Well, we have to maintain it.
They're not going to do that.
Have bathrooms been integrated into any of these lines? Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, there are in almost
Have you found that like emergency like buttons have had any utility in these type of in parks?
It's interesting. There's a big kind of debate on that right now. A lot of people are no longer installing them because the assumption that majority of people have cell phones, and that it was a great idea and it's great in theory, but it's more practical to put in more signage that says where you are, and that if there is an emergency, you can utilize your own cell phone and say, I'm at mile marker number 2.6, and so people have access. So it's doable, but it's not something that is commonly being installed anymore.
Understood. That's helpful. Thank you.
So thank you.
This was the drill down onto these individual facilities. And then on the master plan, it had the trail map, but again, it was a vision, not an actual
Correct.
hard set plan. And so eventually we'll do this level and deeper on the rail spur, correct? All right, so that's the next phase for it. Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll take these and we'll tighten these up and get them all digital. And then we'll provide more 3D renderings. And as Charles mentioned, that can be used as marketing material to acquire more funding and convince the state that they should, participate with you all. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Next, we'll move on to discuss, consider, and act upon the minutes from the November 2021 and November 1 and November 9, 2021 board meetings. Everybody had an opportunity to review or take it real quick.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the first.
Motion made by member Cash. Seconded by member Jan.11. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Next is November 9. Short meeting.
Motion to approve those minutes as well.
Motion made by member Cash. Seconded by member LaShane. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. On item number 4, discuss, consider, and act upon the December 2021 financial reporting and related items, which includes September, October, and November. Long report.
Good evening. We're going to do just a quick update on the September 30th fund summary and also the October 31st summary. The last time we met, we were still waiting to receive the September sales tax receipts, and sales tax has run 2 months behind. So we did receive that number. So that brought your total revenues for the fiscal year ending September 2021 to $1,022,473, which was sales tax we're running for last year about 19% of our budget. Your expenses for the fiscal year were $1,092,390. That brought your ending fund balance to $2,991,060. Because of that change, that of course affects your beginning fund balance for the new fiscal year. So for October, although we had met in November about the October financials, this did update that beginning fund balance. Revenues for the month of October were $71,610. Expenses were $22,761. And that brought your total fund balance as of the end of October to $3,039,909. Attached behind that summary page are the income reports that provide additional detail if you have any questions on those. Okay, go on to the month of November. So for the month of November, you had sales tax recorded for the year to date of $141,666. That is actually 2 months accrual. And sales tax does run 2 months behind. Year-to-date interest earned is $1,633.34. Year-to-date expenses total $52,846. Month-to-date expenses for routine payroll, landscape maintenance at the Four Corners, Highway 80 and Collins Road there. Texas Economic Development Marketing Program renewal. We had an ordinance signed for the parks. Made a payment to MHS Planning and Design for the park planning, and also a payment on the EDC website reskin to Marketing Alliance. So as of 11/30/2021, you had total revenues of $143,300. You had total expenditures of $52,806, giving you a total ending fund balance as of 11/30 of $3,081,514. again, that info detail is behind that if you have any questions. The December 31st, 2021 financials. So for the month of December, sales tax recorded year to date is $246,501. That includes 2 months accrual, but it also includes a 1 month actual. Year-to-date interest earned is $2,464. The year-to-date expenses total $107,086. Your month-to-date expenses include your payroll, again, your monthly landscape maintenance at the Four Corners. We had a message board that we purchased for Vineyard Park. We had turf grass maintenance at all the parks, another payment on the Conceptual Park planning, and a payment to Komatsu Architecture for the Glazer barn. That brought your total revenues as of 12/31 to $248,966. Operating expenses for December, $107,087, bringing your ending fund balance as of 12/31/2021 to $3,132,939. Additionally, attached to the back of your December financials will be your historical and actual sales tax chart for through December, and also your incentive listing for 4B. I'm happy to answer any questions.
I noticed the October was a big spike over the last 3 years, so that trend continues. We should have a strong year when it comes to revenue.
Correct. October receipts, October sales tax that we actually received in the month of December is about a 4% increase above the budget.
And remind me on the GS Foods restaurant next door. Once they open, when would we make first payment on that? Was it a few months in, or was it at?
It's based on qualified expenditures. They would have to produce the receipts.
Okay.
Where is the COVID relief? We voted on the COVID relief one, I believe, in November. Where is that reflected?
Well, you can see on your incentive listing that that's no longer listed on there. So that just frees up that $20,000 for incentives.
Thank you.
So your commitment prior to that was $248,000, or I'm sorry, your total committed amount prior to that was $283,000. And so you can see that that came down to $263,000. So that just frees up an extra $20,000 in your incentive line item.
I reviewed all of it and didn't see anything jumping out. You know, and the revenue was the key thing, but I didn't. Just you had the, some park expenses and things like that that are to be expected, but
Nothing unusual.
barring any questions, can I get a motion to approve the December 31, 2021 financials? Just the December, isn't it? Or we need to approve each one individually?
You can approve it as it's written, which is the December financials and related, to include your updated September, October.
Motion made by member Cash, seconded by member Padmanabhan. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. On number 5, discuss and consider updates on the following ongoing projects. So all of these are listed in the back. First key thing being Glazer, council move forward with the 10 stall design instead of the 16 stall that we recommended. So that's going to be moving forward for the design aspects.
So from a budget standpoint, is it still the 550 VAT?
What's that?
They're going to 10 stars.
Well, they originally were going to move forward with 10. We took a pause,
Yeah.
reviewed everything. We recommended 16 and they stuck with 10.
Good. Okay.
And then you can see the fire station going up.
Yeah.
So that's,
So, yeah. It started pretty.
Yep.
We tried.
one thing I would say though is with the fire station going in, it's funny how much, just by clearing that one section around, how much it makes you notice the topography.
Yeah. It's
Before
okay.
it looked pretty flat.
Yeah.
Now you're like, that's not flat.
It is. Yeah, but they didn't go.
Use the mic.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a $50,000 extra for another 6 towns. And that is what we decided. So was there any discussion or decisions, or what is any reasoning given by the council for that?
I have not heard them, but that was their decision. They approved it and moving forward. And so we can follow up and ask follow-on questions, but there's no action to take at this moment.
There was a great debate that night over the whole 10, 15, 16 stall thing. I was here and there were some impassioned people that spoke about it, but I guess it came back down to money again. And I think maybe once we move forward and get the 10 stall thing built, there may be other options to pursue, like the cheaper method to add stalls to accommodate additional horses. So that's kind of what it sounded like to me, the direction they might consider down the road.
And put some polythene sheets or something.
If I could add one thing on the fire station side of the property, I've gotten a couple comments from people that see where the silt fence and the temporary fencing is up around the fire station. Just so you know, that is not the final footprint of the fire station
Yeah, that's-
property. They've blocked off some extra area for material lay down and where their construction trailer is going to go. So it's freaked some people out that we're taking that much property up, and it's just temporary during the construction. The actual footprint of the fire station will be much smaller. In case you get asked
It
that
looks
question.
like a school's going in, but you know, I know you got to move a lot of stuff in order to put a pad in place.
Yes.
And town center. Any questions? The vineyard or the cameras, it says completed install on vineyard. Waiting on town center. Rails to Trails looks nice where it was mowed. And yes, there was a lot of dumping going on back there, so hopefully with houses backing up to it now, they can report that stuff. You know, a lot of that was there from before Stony Creek was developed, so.
When we went out there to initially begin the cleanup, there were people actually there dumping stuff when we drove up. And we were like, hey, what are y'all doing? And so I don't think they'll be back.
Right.
We had a talk with them, so I don't think they'll return. But we have installed the signs, so they're now at each entrance off the road. So at least when they drive up, they're there.
Right.
We should invest in some like big fake cameras along some of these places where we're having dumping issues. You know, signs that say keep your own camera and don't dump your old sofa over here.
We removed probably 3 trailers of rebar and concrete before we could ever put the mower down.
Rebar and concrete's not,
That's not conducive to the bush hog.
that's probably local. that's not being brought in from out of town.
Yeah, no, this gentleman was a Sunnyvale resident.
Then all the water fountains everywhere, is that all from the freeze mostly?
Freeze it,
Well, some of them were messed up prior to the freeze.
the freeze and just age. I just purchased today the first one for Vineyard Park. You know, they're that concrete, pressed concrete with they've got like the gravel pushed in, and one of them is split from the top dish all the way down to the connection in the ground. And it's just over time.
Right.
So we're gonna pull that one out and put in a new one. And then we'll do the other ones either as necessary or when we have the budget. Because they're not cheap.
I thought I wanted to drink out of one of those over by my house one day when I was running, and then I saw somebody put their dog up there.
Yeah, well, we removed the dog, we removed the dog dishes at the one at Vineyard and the one at Jobson, because we want to kind of avoid dogs being walked on where the kids are going to play, you know, soccer, or baseball or softball, and falling down and get a handful of, you know, proof that the dog was there. But we'll keep the dog dish at Samuell Farms, because, you know, we want them to go walk their dogs there.
Okay, that reminds me, I have a question I've always
Sure.
wanted to ask. On the dog box where people put their dog waste, why has that got a lock on it?
So people don't steal the bags.
He's meaning where they put the leftovers, not the bag.
Well, it should all be locked under one box.
Okay.
Yeah.
I always wondered.
It's not two separate boxes.
I have a question on that, the soccer fields on Vineyard Park.
Yes, sir.
Do you notice that sometimes the lights are on in the evenings?
Yes, sir. They're on intentionally. We have practice going on there.
Okay.
Yeah, they have to rent that and pay for it. So it's a customer that's paid for those lights. And we've actually changed our policy. Rather than giving the customer the code
Okay.
to turn the lights on and off, and then us having to pay someone, a vendor, to come change the code, I send out a parks crew member. He turns the lights on for them at the beginning of their rental time,
Okay.
and comes back and turns the lights off at the end of their rental time.
So
Because if
the,
you give that code out, it stays in one hand's about a week. And then you've got 10 people that have the code, and they go out there and turn the lights on anytime they want and leave them on. And it interferes with those houses right there at night, right behind it. Plus they're using, you know, light time and money for their own private practice, which, you know, we're talking one team that's not affiliated with, you know, Sunnyvale Youth Soccer. So that's how we've conquered that without actually investing in any kind of light programming system where I can do it, you know, turn it on and off from my phone or my desktop.
so if they're ready to pay for it, then it should work.
Correct. But they won't have any control over it. We'll still control it. So at the end of their rental time, we give them 15 minutes to vacate, and then the lights go off.
That makes sense.
Yes.
Unfortunately, my son is part of one of those teams.
Right.
Complaining about now I have to drive all the way to Mesquite. So I was wondering like what is.
Yeah. If your coach would contact the Parks Department, he can rent the park with the lights, you know, during the off season, because Sarissa's not practicing now. And I'll rent it to him, program the schedule the guy to go out, turn the lights on and off for us, and they'll be good to go.
I think we just don't want to pay. That is what it is. I think that is what it is.
Yeah, that's always a sticking point.
On town beautification, I see the RFP. I'm glad to see that. The roundabout. Try to remember where we left that off when we met with council and everything, or if we didn't ever really wrap it up, you know, is it still just conceptual until we,
We're still talking about horses.
I'm asking the question, yeah, that's,
So we got direction at the joint meeting with council to proceed conceptually with some sort of metal horses with some landscaping in the center of the roundabout. I believe that at least one member of this board wanted to have a conversation about the exact look and cost of maybe not going with the horses that we had shown with the cheaper option. And so we need to have that conversation. And then also we need, again, identify funding because there isn't any money budgeted for these items. So this is something that if we can find money in the interim, we can do it sooner. Another option is, at some point, I think the town is going to be talking about continuing the extension of the widened Collins Road up to Town East. We could, when we issue debt for that, we could include a component for, $300,000-$400,000 if we go with the option that we presented with to council as part of that project. It delays it, but it's a funding source that we can
Right.
get later down the road. So it's I think we need to have some more conversations about specifically what design do we want to use and then how do we pay for it.
We have a timeline for that phase 2.
So it is in design right now. The design will probably take about a year. That being said, council has expressed a desire to have a conversation about the town's thoroughfare plan, partially to discuss whether or not the town truly does want to widen Collins Road to Town East. There's pros and cons on both sides, and so council wants to have that conversation. We are intending tentatively to have that conversation at the council meeting on January 24th. So next 2 Mondays, basically 2 weeks from yesterday, to see where they fall on that. I think there's some concern about if we widen Collins Road, does that invite more traffic? But is there already too much traffic on the road as it is? So again, it's a conversation that we need to have with council and get some direction on.
It's already congested just with local traffic, so it needs to be. My question back on the traffic circle is, in the interim, we're responsible for maintaining 4 corners. It would seem to make sense to me that we would be responsible to maintain that traffic circle. So I can't recall. I hope it does have irrigation and all that stuff in the middle of it. I can't recall off the top of my head.
So that's part of the RFP is to put irrigation.
Okay, so it does not have water.
None of the medians or the traffic circle have irrigation.
That should have been done.
Some cities put irrigation in median, some cities don't. And when we designed the project back in 2017 or 18 or whenever that was designed, the decision was made not to put it in irrigation. In hindsight, we've decided that we need irrigation, and so that's why we're going out for an RFP now. And I can tell you if we do widen Collins Road Phase 2, the design will have irrigation in those medians.
Just thinking for the traffic circle, we could potentially zero escape or do something just to rather inexpensive to make it look appealing. Putting the lights up and everything's going to make a big difference.
What's the schedule to do that? Is that?
Well, those bits listed in here for later this month, I believe, they're being delivered and then assembled. And once they're here, they're going to use the parking lot.
Right. The lights should be delivered this month. We're currently having conversations with Encore to try and get on their schedule to make sure they have power. And so hopefully the stars align and by mid-February, the lights are in place and on.
I was thinking like if we can all agree on a Sunnyvale rowdy thing, then ISD may pay for that instead of a force.
What was that? Sorry.
So on the circle out there, you put a rowdy.
Oh,
statue,
yeah.
Then probably the ISD will pay for it.
We can ask.
I'm just saying, you know, it may be much better than a horse. I mean, I'm just saying, no. Just saying.
Has anyone ever considered hiring a landscape architect? You know, someone that actually does this, that advises on public art, but also they're kind of a fixture in time and turnover from like one board to another between developers, either small entrepreneurs or larger developers. Kind of like an entity that's fixed, that throughout time and personnel turnover is able to ensure that our vision comes to life.
Right, yes, sir. The actual idea from the horses, came from a landscape architect firm that I used at my prior employment. And he did the work at where the horses are currently staged in the colony.
Mhm.
So we went out and looked at them, and the reason we chose those is because they met basically the three criteria that we were looking for, that you can see through them for the traffic, little to no maintenance, and they reflected the rural, you know, view of the town. And we kind of went through some things, and we talked over some things, but of course, he's not going to actually give us a plan unless we hire him and, you know, pay the fees.
Understood.
But because we have a relationship, he sat down with me and talked and, you know, said, have you thought about this or thought about that? And, you know, we just haven't moved forward on it yet because we haven't gotten the full vision from council on exactly what direction we need to go.
No, I love it. Thank you. And so, as far as just cohesion in time, there's nothing mandated making, like, if we were, say we were to place a landscape architect firm on retainer, such that, or maybe not retainer, but mandate that if a company wants to open up a facility here in Sunnyvale or some type of commercial development, they have to consult this landscape architect, such that no matter what, the flow, everything looks like
That's
it's
what
done
our,
on purpose.
yeah, that's what our code is for. And you can't, you correct me, you know, but you can't mandate the use of specific contract.
Right, yeah, we can't require that specific contractors be used. What we would do if we wanted to do that was through the zoning code, mandate specific requirements. So regardless of what contractor you use, they have to follow the town's design. We've done that to a certain extent in some of our key corridors as far as having requirements for landscape beds and how they have to be shaped and what materials they have to be used. It's still some flexibility from property to property, but we have required some so that there is some continuity.
Thank you.
I like the expanded additional pages with all the construction going on in town. It does impact economic development. So thanks for adding all the detail.
Well, that was scratches their head. Where the
Happens.
culvert thing is.
Well, it's closed until it's complete, right?
Yeah, so I mean that's not Atmos that's causing that to be closed. That's we're replacing the box culvert that goes under the road. So yes,
We're in neutral right now, right? Until they figure out what they're gonna do.
I have not heard of an issue with Atmos.
I thought we had a utility in there that had to be rerouted, and so until they figure out what they're gonna do, it's kind of, construction is kind of on hold.
They're still working, but I guess Atmos is.
Yeah, I mean I don't know that that's holding us up completely, but I mean to a certain extent, right. I mean we're working with, if there is an issue with Atmos, we're working with them. It's scheduled to be closed until April as it is, just because we have to basically demo the street, take out a box culvert, perhaps replace a sewer line, and then rebuild everything back, and that takes time.
Just out of curiosity, what's the new capacity? Double, triple, quadruple, whatever was already there?
If I
I guess
remember
enough to meet whatever.
correctly, and I'm going off of what I think Lyle told somebody else, so don't quote me on this, but I think right now it has 2 openings and it's going to 3 openings. So I guess half again. It's designed to hold a 100-year flood, which is what is the standard to design to.
So if you guys don't know, the houses on the north side of the road have flooded multiple times. So this will help so they don't flood, hopefully.
Perhaps those homes are still in the floodplain.
Right, well, that's what I
regardless.
mean. It'll
Um,
help. But yeah.
I don't want to make any guarantees because again, they're still in the floodplain. But hopefully, yes, it will help water flow.
Right. Yeah, because it's not just pasture land with a few houses anymore. Cool.
How many people have run to the barricades?
None that I'm aware of.
Maybe at least one.
I've watched people go around them. I don't know how far they made it, but it's
Somebody crashed through already.
Oh, really?
No. I think it was right after they got first put out.
Yeah.
I mean, not like you couldn't see them. But,
I went that way one day going, maybe it's still not, maybe it's not yet closed. You're like, no, it's closed. Got into the traffic in the park with some giant truck trying to get back the other direction. Any other questions on that? Not, we'll move on to number 6, discuss, consider revisions to the 4B Economic Development Corporation's vision and mission statements. So that was a separate email that was sent out to everybody. If I recall correctly, going back in time, we wanted to combine on this slide, the Parthenon slides, items 1, 2, and 5, to basically make our updated 4B Parks and Economic Development combined mission statement. So that, and then we had the discussion, a couple of y'all brought it up about mission versus vision and the specifics into it. So exactly, you go back on our old one, we had the 4A and the 4B mission, which tied into the Sunnyvale town vision. So for 4B now, are we just doing mission? Or do you want both?
The thought is that everyone would have the same vision, and it's the town's vision.
Okay,
And
good.
then so that would just be what your mission statement is.
So we don't need a vision statement.
Yeah, I just put everything on there just in case, if there were any changes, just, we don't have to make any decisions tonight. You can if you want. It's just, really just feedback.
So the vision statement, just to point out, the vision statement on the page that's on the screen is different than the vision statement that's on the Parthenon thing. Yeah. So I think that this one is the newer one, is that
Correct.
correct?
This is the one that came up with last year.
It's changed a couple of times over the last couple of years, so.
And do we have in this packet the mission statement you guys suggested to us?
This is the one that staff put together. I don't see one in here from us. We all kind of spoke out loud without. Get any emails? That was the follow-up. We're gonna send you emails. So between now and
This is the holidays. That's why it's back on
next
here.
meeting, if each one of you can review over these things, and with the goal of coming up with a new mission supporting the town's vision. We're not going to rewrite the town's council's vision. So supporting the town council's vision. And if you have feedback that you'd like to pass on, because I liked what you were stating, you know, from more of a business standpoint.
Yeah, I think for me, it was combining some of the aspects of our mission statement previously that talks about parks and beautification, those sort of things, and adding that into what the EDC, what staff recommended that also covers development. We need to cover both, and I
Right.
feel like we don't have one that actually has both of those parts of our mission in there. Our homework is to work on.
Homework is to work on that individually, or if you want to meet for coffee or something, you can do that, you know, as long as there's only 2 people. And then send that to Burton. He can summarize them all, or I should say it would be easiest then if you just sent out an email with what each of us or whatever anybody comes up with, and then
Yeah, once I start getting some stuff, I'll compile it and send it out to y'all.
Yeah, I think the proposed statement, I think what we need to do is probably expand a little bit more on investing in quality of life improvement. So if we want to be more specific. And the first 2 lines are very good, but then the quality of life, we got to add a few more things. Investing in quality of life improvements through and then through. Yeah. Me too. Yeah.
then discuss future agenda items. So, anything anybody wants to add to future agendas?
Again, I was, like the first meeting I came here, there was some mention, you had mentioned about some business park and some creating some environment control businesses. Is there anything that's done on that? Is that a serious priority for the city, or where do we stand on it?
Are you talking about the entrepreneurship program?
Yes, yes.
So that's something that we need to circle back with council about. There had been some conversation about them appointing a committee to help with those efforts. And so just with other priorities, we haven't gotten to that with them yet. So it's still floating out there, but no progress has been made.
Then we did talk about doing a, whatever you want to call it, a town tour, field trip. Burton and I visited about it, and we weren't in a rush to try to get it done in January, but looking at hopefully February, but it may be March. But wanted to get y'all's feedback. In the past, we've done parks tours and we've done economic development tours, which I participated in, that were also with town council, and you drove around the bus. But would you want to try to combine those 2 things or do them separate? To me, I would like to focus on the EDC side up front, and he's going to identify a few businesses that would let us stop and tour. The parks we could do at the same time, but that may make for a long event, or just separate it and do 2 separate.
Actually, I'd do 2 separate, because the month is both of it.
Right.
Do the business side of the first, and then the park.
And then another thing that would be, wish we had one out here, the map that's in the back, it would be helpful to have one out here. But a lot of the park stuff we can go over conceptually and visually using the big overhead map, but you still don't get the real deal feel until you go stand on the ground. And every one of these parks that are listed, we can go to individually, including the lakefront. And the Rails to Trails, it's been a long time, but now that we actually own it, if you guys are interested, we can schedule. And it's one of those, if you can make it, great. If you can't, don't worry about it. But with some side by sides and drive it.
Yep.
So you guys can get out and see it. Right.
Where are we on the grant application for the trails around the Glazer property? It'll be March, April before we hear anything back from Parks and Wildlife.
What trail?
It's in the, on the last pages in here. So the horse park, right.
All the way around.
There was a grant that was filed by staff to wrap the park with trails for $150,000. Might cost more than 150, but that was the limit on the grant, right?
Yeah, 150,000 was the grant ceiling. The project itself was 367. JD. Yeah. So that would connect there. The homes that are there on Virgil that extends down Jobson, that just kind of dead ends right there at the Glazer property. So it would connect there, go down to where the fire station is, east along Trip, and then connect to the trail that's coming down from the falls.
So it'll be going along Jobson and then Trip.
Correct, inside the Glazer property, yeah.
And then on the grant for the rails to trails, we were told that we were recommended for funding for fiscal year 2023 for design. So we'll have to start planning for that because that won't be an inexpensive design phase. But once we get the design phase going, we can start applying. Or we can already start applying for the construction, but you got to have to design it before they're gonna pony up the funds to help. So to that point, though, since they've mowed it, start encouraging people to walk it and access it and enjoy it. It'll help us once we start moving forward with building it.
I know this has been kicked around in the past, but and I've slept since then and things have happened, but is there a way that we could look at considering some routes to trail system to the school, westward, probably all the way to Homestead or Harris? Kids wouldn't have to get on the road.
It's in the plan, I know that.
I mean, I've never seen a plan, I guess, that showed that.
There's a below grade crossing that's planned in Collins Phase 2 in the design. It's basically, it's right there.
Your names.
It's by Hounslow, isn't it, Charles? Lala and I looked at it one time. There's a speed limit sign there, and it's not exact by any stretch, but there you can see where the grade starts kind of higher in that area. He had told me once before when we met with Doug out there that would probably be the general vicinity where it would be. But if the the trail that goes down through the falls actually connects up to the north, goes all the way up to Stony Creek Drive, and then you've got sidewalks and things like that go over to Homestead as well. So in theory, if they were to go on Stony Creek Drive, it could get them there without being on main roads.
That could, yeah, I just tried that, right? You can walk down the falls trail and then connect and you'll be able to go.
And we can do the trails tour while we're doing our
That's,
parks
that'll be
tour. But a lot of that can be done on the,
That's a lot of miles.
on
to
the
walk
map. What I'm saying, a lot of that can be done on the map.
Map, yes.
JD said he wanted to do that in July. We did the first one in July. We won't do that again.
Any other questions, comments? Get a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Motion made by member Cash, seconded by member Anthony. All those in favor? We are adjourned at 7:04 PM. Thank you, everybody. Do your homework. So you're asking you about the unimproved trails?